Today, we're answering a question that we get all the time here in the shop. People come in and ask us, what's the difference between the Ender 3 S1 and the S1 Pro, and what does that little bit of extra money get me if I go to the Pro? We're going to address that right now. So first things first is the build volume. And in this case, there is no difference between either of these printers. They're both 220 by 220 by about 270 high. And that's all in millimeters, of course. So that's not a differentiating factor. If we start kind of at the build surface and work our way up, you have a different build surface on the Pro versus the standard S1. The S1 comes with a polycarbonate flex sheet like this, that's kind of textured, that we've seen on printers from Creality for quite a while. And on the Pro, you're getting the powder-coated textured PEI. And for most people printing maybe primarily PLA and other materials anyway, PEI is a fantastic option. And while the polycarbonate works great, sometimes I find that things stick too well to it, and I end up kind of damaging the print surface as I try to get them off. And you can kind of see some remnants of that on this used build plate here. I've spared you watching me pull this out of the box, but just grabbing under here and lifting, there is bubble wrap around there and then plastic wrap around the whole thing. And this is an enclosed printer, but obviously we're lacking some walls, so there's a little bit of assembly required. So we've removed the straps, we've removed the cardboard from here. The next step here says to install the spool holder and the PTFE tube anchor assembly. That's obviously on the back of the printer. So on the back of the printer here, it says spool holder, and it's got arrows to these two screw holes. Only this one has a screw in it. But there's another green label in this bag that says for the spool holder, and there's two longer screws in here. So at this point, the instructions tell us to turn on the printer, and there should be a QR code here to tie this machine to our BAMBU account. On the bottom of that page of the instructions, it actually specifically tells you to not remove these because it's going to go through a calibration process, and at the end of the calibration process, that's when those get removed.
We've got a preset for it. We could obviously add in a custom filament as well. We're going to do 0.2 millimeter, that's fine. Layer height is 0.2, first layer is 0.2, so seam position aligned, so this is similar to what you'd see in Cure and other slicers, so each layer will have that seam and they'll be all lined up. Only one wall on the top surfaces. Okay, so we've got typically a couple walls all the way around, and then the top one is just going to only have one perimeter. Extrusion, you know, nothing to complain about at all. But in some lights, and I'm not sure how the camera's going to pick it up, you can see almost a wavy banding effect. That's probably maybe 5 millimeter, 7 millimeter ripples almost. You can't quite feel them with your finger, and even when you look down the side, it's like perfectly buttery smooth. Hey guys, we're unboxing and doing our first prints on the Creality HALOT MAGE Pro 8K. So at this point, I've just taken the box off the top, and some of the cellophane plastic wrap came off with it. It was kind of attached to some of this tape here. As we saw on the MAGE, so this is the MAGE Pro, as we saw on the MAGE, we have this nice flip-top lid, which I remember saying I was a fan of because it's inconvenient to kind of carefully lift off a lid and then have to put it down somewhere, especially if your hands aren't the cleanest at the time. This is a nice solution. And it needs just a little bit of clearance above the resting height of the printer in order to do so, and maybe about 3 inches off the back. We'll pull out this foam carefully because in the top here, there's a bunch of goodies. We've got a bag containing the sharpened scraper here, the plastic scraper, And then our paint strainers. So this is for filtering the resin out of the vat and back into the bottle. Make sure there's no little cured pieces of resin going back in that bottle. We have what looks like a serial number card for a Creality Chitu Box Pro and a USB stick. We can of course go back here and check for an update. Let's check on the network. Hey, new version. Let's install that new version before we go any further. And we'll just wait a couple minutes and it will likely restart, and then we'll just confirm that we got the update. You would loosen these bolts so that the build plate's just flopping around so that it can go down and properly level the build plate. So I've taken it off just so we don't accidentally potentially smash into the screen, and I'm going to loosen these bolts off the printer. So I've just rested this on that foam just for fun. And as I said, you would normally loosen these when you go to do your leveling process, but there was no manual Z up or down. I just wanted to move it enough to get this vat out of there and the foam out of there. But anyway, we're going to loosen these bolts entirely so that I can demonstrate the build plate flopping around there.
So their website has an entire page dedicated to how to read the results of this, but those are just a couple things I wanted to point out. And I think we're actually going to do this in Dynax as well, but we're going to reduce this. After the results of the first print, I'm just going to try to push it a little bit further and do 1.3, but we're definitely in the ballpark. There was quite a bit of overexposure with 50 seconds as the base layers, which, you know, if you're using a raft or something and lifting this off, that's fine. In this case, you would see that kind of elephant's foot here at the bottom where it would be flared out because those bottom layers are overexposed. There are 4 of them, so it'll be about 0.2 millimeters in height. We're doing 50 micron layers. And in this case, I don't really care that it's overexposed at the bottom, but it's just something to be aware of. And I'm going to bring it down to 40 and see that we still have good build plate adhesion.
Now, these are little miniatures. I know we got some close-up shots. His hands apparently are separate pieces that kind of plug onto these. I sliced this in HALOT box, and that's what I showed some of the Dynax settings. These were printed in Dynax, and I tried 2 different exposures. So I did 1.4 and 1.3. 1.4 and 1.3, just to see if there was any discernible difference between the 2 of them, and there really isn't. If I had to argue, I would say that the 1.3 here does look a little bit crisper, but I'm really splitting hairs. And hopefully it shows up in the pictures, but it turned out beautiful. There's even kind of a wooden texture to these pieces down here on this like shieldy material, and you can still see that in the resulting print, so that's kind of cool. Hey guys, today we're unboxing and taking our first look at the Creality K1 Max. So I've just removed the printer from the box. I removed the protective film on the front and the tape that was kind of holding the door shut, so now the door can open. And then these are the materials that were inside. So on the very top, we had our bag with our instruction manual. We had the glass top. We had this little insert here that has the power cord and the LCD screen here. And then this was sitting in the printer, and I pulled it out the top exactly like this. And this contains a spool of filament. So this is their Hyper PLA, their Fast PLA in white. We have a box labeled hot end, bunch of rubber feet, and a couple little brackets. It looks like this is for the door. Yep, the door handle. And then in here, we've got tools, assembly tools, snips, glue stick, etc. So one of the first steps is to install the screen. There's a sticker on here that tells you to make sure that the platform screws, which are here, here, and here, they're identified by these little yellow arrows. It says make sure that they're removed before we turn on the power. So I'm gonna leave this protective film on there with that sticker just to remind us. But this just gets connected at the front here with a little piece of tape holding the ribbon cable down. And then the screen gets oriented like this. These grooves go right in there. And we'll just make sure that this clicks in like this. We can hear the fan spin up there on the cold side. Speaking of nozzles, the box that said hot end has a new nozzle assembly. So you've got like the throat, the heater, and the nozzle on the end there, as well as a silicone sock and some assembly screws. So you've got at least one replacement on hand. Well, we're back about a week later, and we have 4 different test prints. We have the 3 factory sliced prints that were done in the Hyper PLA that they provided with the printer. And we have one here, which is a fan shroud done in ASA. So this is our own slice, of course. Looking at these ones first, all 3 of them, absolutely nothing to speak about. Perfect prints all the way around. They printed fast, very similar to the times that it estimated they would be. And they're just pristine, buttery smooth.
Today, we're going to take a look at the Creality Sonic Pad, which is a control pad to convert your Marlin printer to Clipper and control multiple printers from one screen. Without further ado, let's unbox this guy. So the packaging is nice. I mean, that's always a nice touch. We've got some little stickers, it looks like. And the 7-inch touchscreen. There we go. And so we'll go over all the different ports and features of this in a minute, but that's kind of the main unit. Little kickstands on it. Then in here we have a micro USB to USB. We've got this other cable with a proprietary connection on here that goes into the pad. And then this is a gyro, so it's got X, Y, and Z direction indicators. You attach this to the hot end, and we'll use that to tune what's called input shaper. Input shaper in Clipper is going to allow us to reduce the ringing at high speeds. So as you come around a corner and change direction quickly, sometimes you'll end up with a little bit of a wobble, and you'll see it in the side of the print, especially like if you're printing a tall print, you'll see it in that side. We can significantly limit that by kind of tuning out the resonant frequencies of the particular machine that we're printing with. It's doing Z-safe homing, so moving to the center to probe the bed. Okay, so it's now probed the bed twice in the middle, and it's got the Z offset at 4.96 millimeters. So if you recall from maybe when you set up your machine originally, assuming you had a BL Touch, the Z offset is the difference between where the probe hits the bed and where the nozzle actually is. So the nozzle is obviously higher than the probe, otherwise the nozzle is hitting the bed. So that difference there, in this case, it thinks is about 4.96 millimeters as a starting point. And so now we're going to further refine that. Select the travel distance in millimeters and we can move it up and down. Yeah. So we'll get our standard piece of printer paper. I am making some assumptions here because it doesn't actually tell me what to do. But it gives me the up and down, the increments to move in, and it's moved the nozzle to the middle. So I think it wants me to verify if moving the Z down to 0 is actually at 0. So now we're at 0.96. We'll move in smaller increments, say 0.5. Okay. Still not even close. And we'll just keep, oh yeah, we got lots. Let's go down further. A little bit further. Now, because we're not doing this at temperature, we can see up here that the hot end is not preheated. You need to make sure that your nozzle is clean for sure. Otherwise, any plastic that's built up on the tip of the nozzle is going to throw off, what we're doing here. So, okay, so loading up your favorite web browser, and you have to obviously be on the same network as the pad was. And if you remember from the network information screen, we had an IP address. So 192.168,
.125.199 in our case. Yours may be vastly different. So you may have seen there a moment ago, it said Moonraker. There are multiple different UIs that people can use for controlling Clipper. I happen to use Mainsail. Moonraker is another one. I believe you can also use Octoprint, which many people are familiar with from many years ago. They're using Moonraker, obviously Creality branded in some sense, probably customized a little bit. But we see the same kind of information as we did on the pad. So we've got our console information. So we saw this in the console on the pad. This is where we're going to do things like G28. And there the printer goes, homing again. And you can see the previous G28 we issued like 11 minutes ago in real time, not in video time, but I did lowercase G28 from the tab, and then just now I did G28 from the console here. File list, so this is listing the files. I would assume this is from the onboard storage. Something I didn't touch on the screen is there's the concept of macros. So you can think of these as like sequence of G codes that you can just click one button and issue them. So in this case, G29 is ABL, mesh bed leveling. So that would kick that off. And you can label these, you could call this bed leveling, and in the background it's going to issue the G29. Hopefully you found that useful. Hopefully you found all that useful. Hopefully you found all that useful. Hopefully you found all that useful. Hopefully you found that useful. Remember, like and subscribe and ring the bell to get notified when we upload more videos like this. Thanks for watching.